I never meant to stay that late at her house. The evening had thinned out, the kind where conversations slow and you start hearing your own heartbeat between words. Everyone else had gone home. Only Clara and I were left, sitting on opposite ends of her couch, a coffee table scattered with empty glasses and the faint smell of red wine in the air. She looked different than I remembered, softer somehow, like the kind of softness that comes after breaking and stitching yourself back together again. Her hair was loose, falling over one shoulder. The light from the lamp behind her caught in the strands, and it made her skin look warmer, more alive than the rest of the room. "I don't usually keep people this late," she said, smiling, eyes flicking toward the clock. "I don't usually stay this late," I said. My voice came out quieter than I intended. She laughed, the kind that's mostly air. "You used to be so nervous around me." "I still am." That made her glance up, really look at me. Not the quick, polite kind of look. The kind that lingers half a second too long. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was full, heavy with things neither of us knew how to say. Clara leaned back, tucking her leg under her. "You've changed," she murmured. "So have you." Her eyes shifted, as if weighing whether that was a compliment or something else. "Divorce will do that," she said, half smiling. Then, after a pause, "It's strange, getting used to not being touched. You start forgetting what it feels like." She didn't mean it to land the way it did, but it hung there, too human to ignore. I tried to think of something to say, anything, but my mind went blank. She reached for her glass, and when her fingers brushed mine by accident, neither of us moved right away. It wasn't a dramatic moment, just a quiet, electric stillness. Her skin was warm, dry, familiar in a way that shouldn't have been possible. She drew in a slow breath. "You shouldn't look at me like that," she said, not looking away. "How am I looking at you? Like you're thinking about something you shouldn't be." Maybe she was right. Maybe I was. But she didn't pull her hand back. The air felt different now, thicker. I could hear the low hum of her refrigerator from the kitchen, the soft creak of the couch when one of us shifted. Every sound was suddenly sharper, more alive. "Clara," I said, her name feeling unfamiliar in my mouth. "MHM, you said you miss being touched." She blinked, almost as if surprised I'd heard her. "That's not something you're supposed to repeat." "I know. Then why did you?" I swallowed. "Because I think about it too." Her lips parted, but no words came out. She looked at me, then down at our hands, still close, almost touching again. She didn't move away this time. Just let the moment breathe. I could smell the faint trace of her perfume, something floral, worn down by the day. There was a tiny scar near her wrist I hadn't noticed before, and I found myself staring at it, tracing the edge of it with my eyes. "Eli," she whispered finally, the sound of my name almost fragile. "You should probably go." I nodded, but neither of us moved. The clock ticked once, twice. The house seemed to hold its breath. Then, a sudden knock at the front door. She flinched, her hand snapping back. The warmth between us broke like glass. And all I could think was, whoever was on the other side of that door had no idea what they just interrupted. The next time I saw Clara, it wasn't planned. She called me about a photo project, portraits for the art center she managed now. Her tone on the phone was neutral, clipped, but the silence after every sentence felt longer than it should have. When I showed up, the studio smelled like paint and eucalyptus cleaner. Afternoon lights spilled through the tall windows, soft and golden, catching the dust in the air. Clara stood at the far end of the room, sleeves rolled up, hair tied back in a loose knot. "You're early," she said. "I didn't want to be late." She smiled without turning around. "You were never late before, either. You were just shy." That word again. Shy. She said it like a secret she hadn't decided whether to keep or share. I set my camera bag down. Guess some things don't change. She gave me a look, part amusement, part warning, then went back to arranging a vase on a stool. I started checking my camera settings, pretending not to notice the way her shirt slipped off one shoulder as she moved. We didn't talk much at first, just the quiet clicks of the camera shutter, the shuffle of her steps. Then between shots, she said softly, after the divorce, "I thought I'd get used to the quiet." I lowered the camera. "Did you?" "Not really." Her voice was steady, but her eyes weren't. "It's strange. You can share a house with someone for years, and still feel alone. Then one day they're gone, and the silence sounds the same. I didn't know what to say to that, so I took another photo instead. She looked up just as the flash went off, her eyes catching the light. For a second, it felt too intimate, like I'd seen something I shouldn't have. "Delete that one," she murmured. "I won't." Her lips curved, but the smile didn't last. "You always push, don't you?" "I don't mean to." "I know." She moved closer, standing beside me to look at the camera screen. Her shoulder brushed mine, just a faint pressure, but it sent a current through me. She leaned in a little too far, her breath brushing my ear. "Not bad," she said, her voice low. "You've gotten better. Or maybe I just see you differently now." That made her pause. For a heartbeat, she didn't move. Then she exhaled, not a sigh exactly, more like she'd forgotten how to breathe for a second. "You shouldn't say things like that," she whispered. "Why not?" "Because people talk. And because I might start listening." She stepped away, crossing her arms, trying to collect herself. I caught a glimpse of something behind the calm. Not embarrassment, not regret, but fear. Fear of what it would mean if she didn't stop this. I wanted to say something that would make it easier, but I didn't trust myself to speak. So instead, I reached out, just lightly, and brushed a speck of paint from her wrist. She froze, looked at me, and for a long, impossible second, she didn't pull away. The clock on the wall ticked once. Then she whispered, barely audible, "Don't make me ask you to stop." But her hand didn't move from mine. Not yet. The next week, I was back at the studio. We told ourselves it was just to finish the shoot, but neither of us said what we both knew, that the photos were an excuse. It was raining hard, the kind that muffles everything. The windows fogged over, turning the world outside into soft shapes and moving lights. Inside, the air felt close, heavy with the smell of wet fabric and turpentine. Clara was standing by the table, flipping through the prints I brought. Her fingers traced the edges as if she were touching something fragile. "These are honest," she said after a moment. "You see too much, Eli. You taught me to look." She gave a small, breathy laugh. "That was my first mistake." A clap of thunder rolled through the room, and the lights flickered. She turned toward me, startled. And just like that, we were too close. Close enough to feel the warmth of her breath, the faint scent of rain still clinging to her hair. Neither of us moved. Her eyes flicked down to my mouth, then away. "You shouldn't stand so near," she whispered. "I'm not moving." I noticed. The second stretched tight and trembling. My hand lifted slightly, a reflex more than a decision. But before it reached her, her phone buzzed on the table. We both jumped. She turned away fast, fumbling to check the screen. A name flashed, Mara, her sister. My aunt. Her voice was quiet when she spoke. "She's on her way here." Said she left her sketchbook. My stomach tightened. "She's coming now." Clara nodded, tucking her hair behind her ear, trying to look composed. "You should," but she didn't finish. The words died halfway out. Her gaze caught on mine again, and something in her expression shifted. Exhaustion, longing, a kind of surrender. "I don't want to keep pretending this is nothing," I said before I could stop myself. She stared at me, frozen. "Don't say that. It's already true." The rain hit harder against the windows, a constant whisper. She took a step toward me, small but deliberate. The air between us changed again, that charged stillness we both knew too well. "Do you have any idea what people would think?" she said softly. "Your aunt, your family, me. You're young, Eli. Too young to, I'm 26, not a child." "That's not what I meant." Her voice broke on the last word. Another step. She was close enough now that her hand brushed my chest when she breathed. My pulse felt too loud, too visible. "I keep trying not to," she said. "Not to what?" Her eyes met mine, unguarded now. "Not to want this." Something in me cracked then. My hand found hers, not grabbing, just holding steady. For a moment, it felt inevitable. The distance between us was almost gone. Her breath touched my lips when she exhaled, trembling. And then, the front door creaked open. "Mara," she whispered, pulling back fast. Footsteps. A voice calling from the hallway. We both froze. Clara pressed a finger to her lips, eyes wide, breath unsteady. My hand still held hers under the table, hidden from sight. We didn't speak, didn't move. But even in that silence, I knew we were already past the point of pretending. After that night, Clara stopped answering my texts for a week. No explanation, no excuses, just silence. The kind that gnaws at you, the kind that turns every hour into a question. When she finally called, it was late. Her voice was soft, unsteady. "Can you come by?" I shouldn't ask, but I can't sleep. I went. The house was dim, only the kitchen lights spilling across the floor. She stood by the counter in an oversized sweater, bare feet on the tile, a half-finished glass of wine beside her. "You shouldn't have come," she said. "You called." "I know." Her eyes flicked down, then back up. "I keep thinking about what almost happened." "So do I." She laughed once bitterly. "You're too honest. You're not honest enough." That made her look away. "You don't understand, Eli. If people knew, I don't care what people know." "You should," she said, louder this time. "You have a life ahead of you. You think this is some movie ending, but it's not. I'm older. I'm my aunt's friend." I interrupted. "Not my family. Not my teacher anymore. Just you." She stood there, breathing hard, every word between us stripped of its armor. Then she whispered, "You don't make it easy to be good." Neither of us moved for a long time. The air between us was thin, trembling. I stepped closer, close enough to see the faint shadows under her eyes, the tiny scar on her lip, the way her hand tightened on the counter's edge like she needed to hold herself still. She whispered, "Don't," but her voice didn't sound like a warning. I reached up anyway, slow, deliberate, and brushed a strand of hair from her face. My fingers lingered at her temple, then slid down to her jaw. Her skin was warm, her breath unsteady. She closed her eyes. "You don't know what this would cost me. Then tell me not to touch you." Her silence said everything. I stepped closer still, until the edge of the counter pressed against her hip and my chest almost brushed hers. The faint smell of wine and lavender wrapped around us. "You're shaking," I whispered. "So are you." Her eyes opened, dark, wet, searching mine. "I've tried to stop thinking about you," she said. "I can't." Something inside me broke then, quiet but irreversible. My hand slid to the back of her neck. Her breath hitched, her fingers gripping my sleeve. We stood like that, caught between sense and surrender. The seconds dragged, every heartbeat a decision waiting to be made. "Clara," I said, her name barely a sound. She looked up at me, eyes flicking to my mouth and back. "If you kiss me," she whispered, "we can't go back." "I know." Her lips parted, an inch, maybe less. Then the sound of a car door slammed outside. Headlights flashed across the window. She froze, and before I could say a word, she whispered, trembling, "Don't move." The world outside kept turning, but inside we stayed there motionless, caught right on the edge of everything about to break. The next morning, I woke to a message from Clara. "We need to talk. Don't come to the house. Meet me at the gallery at 6. No explanation. Just that." When I got there, the front lights were off. Only the faint glow from the street spilled through the windows, throwing pale rectangles across the walls. The smell of varnish and rain still lingered. Clara was there, standing near one of her paintings, the one I'd taken her portrait beside weeks ago. She didn't turn when I walked in. "What happened?" I asked quietly. She took a breath before answering. "Mara came by this morning." I froze. She said she was looking for her sketchbook again. I didn't think anything of it until she mentioned you. She said she saw your car outside that night. Clara's voice trembled at the edges. "She asked why you were here after midnight." My stomach dropped. "What did you tell her?" "The truth," she said. Then after a beat, or most of it, I stepped closer. "Clara, she thinks you're interested." Her laugh was short, hollow. I didn't deny it quickly enough. She finally turned toward me. Her face was pale, but her eyes, they looked raw. "Do you know what that means, Eli? What people will say about me? I don't care what they say." "Well, I do," she snapped louder than she meant to. Her hand came up to her forehead, then dropped again, trembling. "I can't do this to myself again. I already lost one life. I can't start another built on whispers." Her words hit, but not as hard as the distance that followed. She started pacing, rubbing her hands together. "I thought I could handle it. Just a project, just seeing you again. But I lied. To myself. To you." I took a slow step forward. Lied how? She looked up, eyes glistening. I told myself it was nostalgia. That was harmless. But every time you looked at me like that, her voice cracked. I felt like I was 20 again, and it terrified me. She turned away, hiding her face. I could see her shoulders shaking, not from crying exactly, but from holding everything in. Clara, I said softly, look at me. She didn't. I reached out and touched her arm, just above the elbow. The moment my fingers brushed her skin, she went still. Slowly, she faced me, eyes wet, expression unreadable. I don't want to ruin you, she whispered. You couldn't. Don't say that. Then tell me you don't feel it too. Her lips parted, but she didn't speak. The silence between us was full, not empty, but heavy with something breaking loose. When she finally stepped closer, the movement was so small it barely registered, until she was right there, inches away, her breath catching on mine. This isn't brave, she said. It's foolish. Then we'll be foolish. For the first time, she didn't pull away. Her hand came up to my chest, fingertips trembling over my heart like she needed to be sure it was real. The air between us felt electric. Everything we'd been avoiding now alive, undeniable. I told her you were nothing more than a friend, she whispered. And now, her voice shook. Now I'm not sure I can keep lying. And with that, she closed the space between us almost. Her lips hovered a breath away. The sound of her phone buzzing on the table sliced through the moment. She didn't look at it, didn't move, but I saw the name glowing on the screen, Mara, and I knew whatever she chose next, there was no way back. The rain had started again by the time I reached her house. I didn't knock. The door was already open, just enough to let in the faint sound of the storm. Clara stood in the living room, her back to me. The phone was still in her hand, the screen dark now. She didn't turn around when she said, "She knows, Eli. Mara knows everything." I closed the door behind me. "Did you tell her?" "She heard us. That night you came over." Her voice was low, strained. I thought she'd left, but she must have come back for something. She heard enough. The words landed hard. But what hit deeper was how still she was. Like she'd already given up trying to fix it. "She said I should stop seeing you," Clara continued. "That I'm old enough to know better. That you'll get bored, and I'll be left." She broke off, swallowing the rest. I stepped closer. "She doesn't get to decide that." "She's right, though." Clara turned then, eyes tired but bright. "This, whatever it is, it can't survive outside this room." "Then don't let it leave the room," I said, softer now. "Just stay in it with me." Her breath caught, and, for the first time, she let herself look at me. Really look. The fight in her eyes faded, replaced by something quieter. Resignation. Hunger. I took another step, close enough to feel the heat from her skin, to see the small pulse beating at her throat. She whispered, "You don't know how long it's been since I let someone this close." "I think I do," I said, "because I feel it too." The words seemed to unmake her. Her shoulders dropped, the tension in her arms easing as if she'd been holding her breath for months. "I keep asking myself," she said, "why you'd want someone like me." I shook my head. "You still don't get it. It's not about one anymore." She tilted her chin up slightly, her lips trembling with the beginning of a question she couldn't finish. I brushed my thumb across her cheek, catching a tear before it fell. "It's about the fact that when I'm with you, the rest of it, every voice, every rule, just stops." Her eyes fluttered shut. For a second, there was no sound but the storm and the sound of two breaths falling in sync. "Eli," she whispered, voice breaking. "If we cross this line, there won't be one left to cross," I finished. She opened her eyes again, and whatever was left of her hesitation slipped away. She leaned forward until her forehead rested against mine. Her hands found my shoulders, trembling. "This is wrong," she said, but her voice had no conviction. "Maybe," I whispered back, "but it's also true." We stayed there, breathing the same air, skin almost touching, everything that had been unsaid hanging between us. She closed her eyes and finally, softly, said, "Then stay." The word wasn't an invitation. It was a surrender. And in that moment, neither of us was pretending anymore. We understood exactly what we were choosing. Morning came slow. The rain had stopped some time before dawn, leaving the world hushed and silver. Clara sat on the edge of the couch, wrapped in a blanket, staring out the window. I watched her from the kitchen, the soft light tracing the curve of her shoulder, the quiet rise and fall of her breathing. Neither of us spoke for a long time. The night before had left the air raw, delicate like glass still cooling. Finally, she said, I thought I'd wake up and regret it. I stepped closer, barefoot on the wooden floor. Do you? She turned, meeting my eyes. Not yet. Then softer, that scares me. I smiled a little. You're allowed to be scared. She gave a small nod, pulling the blanket tighter around herself. You make it sound simple. It isn't, I said, sitting beside her. But it feels right. That made her laugh quietly, the kind of laugh that's half relief, half disbelief. She shifted, leaning her head against my shoulder. For the first time, she didn't pull away. The clock ticked faintly in the background. Outside, the wet leaves glowed under the first stretch of sunlight. I keep thinking about the noise, she said. The talk, the looks. What it'll mean for you. Let them talk. You really believe that? No, I admitted. But I believe in this. She looked up at me then, eyes softer than I'd ever seen them. You shouldn't have to carry my mess, Eli. Then let's carry it together, I said. For a while, there was nothing, no words, just the sound of her breathing against my shirt. My hand found hers under the blanket, and she didn't let go. I used to think getting older meant feeling settled, she whispered. Turns out, it just means learning how to want again. Her thumb brushed the inside of my palm, slow and absent-minded. Do you still regret it? I asked. Clara shook her head. Regret is easy. This isn't. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but it filled the room. I turned to face her, and she smiled, small, unguarded, almost shy. I reached up, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. She closed her eyes, leaning into the touch. Then she said, whatever happens next, promise me you'll keep taking pictures. I will. Even of me, especially you. She laughed under her breath, then exhaled, resting her forehead against mine. For a long, quiet moment, the world outside didn't exist. There was only the warmth between us, the kind that didn't demand, didn't hide. When she finally spoke again, her voice was steady. So what do we call this? I smiled. Ours. And she nodded once like she believed me. We stayed like that, hands intertwined, sunlight creeping over the floor, the silence finally gentle instead of heavy. Whatever came next, we'd already crossed every line that mattered. And neither of us wanted to go back. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?